Most people are still afraid of fat. They are avoiding butter, they're cutting egg yolks, and they're buying low-fat foods. And yet, they're gaining fat, their hormones are dropping down, and their bodies are not changing. So let me say this clearly. Fat does not make you fat, but something else does. And if you don't understand that, your body will block muscle growth and store fat no matter how clean you eat. For decades you have been told fat is bad, fat will block your arteries, fat makes you gain weight. But that comes from outdated guidelines and poor science. But this is what actually matters. You're not getting fat because of the fat that you eat. Fat storage is controlled by hormone insulin. So when insulin is high, you store fat and you block fat burning. So the real question is not how much fat are you eating. The real question is what is your insulin doing? So let me simplify this. When you eat a lot of carbohydrates, your blood sugar raises, your insulin spikes, and when insulin spikes, your fat burning slows down. And now your body stores fat instead of burning it. Even worse, when your insulin is constantly elevated, you become insulin resistant and you start storing fat even faster. And this is why people say, oh, I eat healthy, but I can't lose fat, because they are still driving insulin all day. Now let us look at fat properly. Fat does not spike insulin. That means that even if you eat fat, your body will still be in fat-burning environment. But this is not all. Fat is extremely important, is essential for your metabolic health, because it supports testosterone production, supports hormonal balance, slows digestion, and provides stable energy. And this is critical because fat allows amino acids from protein to be released steadily. So instead of having spikes and crashes of amino acids, you get sustained muscle building environment. And this is why golden era benefited from eating steak and eggs. Most of them relied primarily on steak and eggs, and you know what the results were. They managed to develop astonishingly impressive physiques, perfect proportions, perfect balance, and more importantly, perfect definition, all due to the right combination of protein and fat in their diets. Now, this is where most people get confused. When they hear fat is good, they still don't know which fat, how much, and what actually that fat does to your body. So let me make this very clear. The foundation of your fat comes from meat, fish, eggs, cheese. These are natural food, these are whole food, and they contain mostly saturated fats and some monounsaturated fats. And this is where people start panicking. Let me debunk this myth about saturated fats once forever. For years, you have been told that saturated fat is very bad for you. It causes heart disease. They've been saying that for decades. Also, saturated fat, they cause cholesterol problems. And all of this will actually lead to very poor health. But this is based on outdated and misunderstood science. Saturated fat is not inherently dangerous. Saturated fat is essential for hormone production, especially testosterone. If you don't eat saturated fats, you will be lacking the most important muscle building hormone in the body. Also, cell membrane structure. Cell membrane is the most important part of every single cell. So if that membrane is not flexible, is not allowing nutrients to come in and obviously byproducts to get out of the cells, you're going to be having big metabolic issues. Also, brain function. Brain is made of fat, so you need to eat fat in order to support brain functions. And not to mention energy stability. And most importantly, it supports the production of cholesterol, which is absolutely essential for your health. Let's go a bit deeper about saturated fats, because most people misunderstand this. Humans did not evolve around low-fat diets. So if you go back into evolution for hundreds of thousands of years, the staple food for humans was meat. Meat and fatty parts of animals. Humans thrive on that food. And interestingly enough, the archaeological remains show that skeletons of people show that were in extremely good health. For example, the bones were long, strong, there was no deformed bones, jaw was perfectly developed, all the teeth remain in the skull, no rotten teeth, no missing teeth. This is absolutely phenomenal. And how did they do this? They actually benefited greatly because they were eating exclusively protein and fat. So they did not have low-fat diets. It's known that Inuits, for example, prefer to eat fatty parts of seals or whale or everything they catch. And when they, for example, when they catch fish which is not high in fat, they dip that fish into whale oil in order to provide themselves with enough fat and protein. So not protein only, but also fat. And this is obviously saturated fat. One of the biggest advantages of saturated fat is that actually saturated fat is chemically stable. That means that unlike many unsaturated fats, saturated fat does not oxidize easily. Also, it does not break down under heat. Also, it does not form harmful byproducts easily. And what it means for the body, it means that saturated fat provide clean, reliable energy. When your body uses saturated fat for fuel, energy is steady, no blood sugar crashes, no insulin spikes, and no energy fluctuations. And this is why people feel stable, more stable than on different diets, more focused, and also less hungry. Obviously, when fat intake is adequate in their daily diets. Another important role of saturated fat in human body is that supports cholesterol production. Cholesterol is a precursor of testosterone and other steroid hormones. So low saturated fat is often linked with low testosterone, poor recovery, and reduced muscle building capacity. So when people completely remove fat from their diets, they are removing the key building block for growth. Huge mistake. And just remind yourself what most of the bodybuilders and people who go to the gym now eat, what diet they follow. Low fat, high protein, high carbohydrate. In my previous video, I have explained that more in detail, so you can watch that video and learn which type of food, which type of diet is actually the best for you, the diet that will provide you with constant, sustained supply of amino acids, also low insulin and high insulin sensitivity, which is absolutely essential for muscle growth. So where this confusion and actually problem with saturated fats comes from, the problem is that saturated fats has been blamed in the wrong context. If someone has high sugar intake, high insulin and chronic inflammation, yes, in that case, saturated fat can be a problem. But these problems that may arise are not created by saturated fat alone. It is the combination of poor metabolic health and poor diet structure. And in reality, saturated fat is natural, stable, essential, supportive of hormones, and also supportive of energy. And now what about cholesterol? Cholesterol is not an enemy, is not a villain. Cholesterol is one of the most essential molecules in your body. We constantly produce cholesterol every day. The liver produces cholesterol because every cell in the body depends on cholesterol, not to mention hormones. So regardless of your daily intake of cholesterol, your body will always produce enough. If you don't eat any cholesterol, your body will produce more. If you eat more cholesterol, your liver will produce less. So we always try to be in that balance. But if you support your diet, your physiology with cholesterol from food, the situation is going to be much better, because the cholesterol is used for production of testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, and also so important vitamin D. Without cholesterol, you cannot build muscle sufficiently and you cannot regulate hormones properly. The problem is not cholesterol itself, it is the context in which cholesterol exists, and this is high inflammation, high insulin, and poor metabolic health. This is what creates problems, not saturated fat alone. So let us now move to the extremely important group of fats, and these are monounsaturated fats. So the best sources of monounsaturated fats are olive oil and avocado. These fats are incredibly beneficial because they, first of all, they improve insulin sensitivity. This is what you want. This is what you want for muscle growth. This is what you want for fat loss. Also, these fats support cardiovascular health. Also, they reduce inflammation and they provide stable energy. So let me tell you something about essential fats. And these are omega-3 fatty acids. They are found in fatty fish, for example, mackerel, salmon, sardines, and also fish oil supplements. Obviously, it's always the best if you can get it from the real food, from the whole food. But if you don't, fish oil supplements are extremely effective. And they are critical because, first of all, omega-3 fatty acids, they reduce inflammation. Also, they support heart health, they improve recovery, and also they support brain function. So most people are actually deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. Modern diets are very high in omega-6, and when omega-6 is high, then the balance, the ratio between omega-6 and omega-3 goes into the negative ratio. So you want to supplement your food with omega-3 supplements, or make sure that you eat oily ocean fish in order to increase omega-3 and try to lower omega-6, which are still important but not in high amounts. When it comes to cooking, you want to use fat which is stable under heat. The best ones to use are butter, lard, and coconut oil, because these fats, they don't oxidize easily, which means they do not become toxic when heated. And compare that to most vegetable oils, which actually break down and create harmful compounds when exposed to heat. Your cooking oils actually matter more than you think. Most people are always concerned about calories, proteins, carbs, but they completely ignore what happens to fat when they heat it. And this is critical, because once you apply heat, fat can either remain stable or become toxic. So what makes fat stable? Saturated fats don't have double bonds, and that makes them resistant to heat, to oxidation, and also they are chemically stable. And this is why fats like butter, lard, and coconut oil can handle cooking. They are safe, they don't turn into toxic components when exposed to heat, because they simply don't break easily. So when you compare that to most vegetable oils, which are actually high in polyunsaturated fats, they also contain multiple double bonds, which makes them very unstable under heat. So when you heat these oils, they undergo the process which is called oxidation, and that leads to formation of toxic compounds, lipid peroxides, and also free radicals. So you don't want that in your body. They can cause the whole range of diseases. So the problem is that these compounds can actually damage your cells. They can increase inflammation, impair metabolism, and contribute to long-term disease. A lot of people would say, oh, but I'm cooking in olive oil. So what about olive oil? Olive oil is mostly monounsaturated fat, which is relatively stable and safe for low to medium heat. So you can cook in olive oil, but avoid cooking on high heat. But you have to remember that saturated fats are still superior. I personally cook on lard, butter, and coconut oil. So let me give you a simple rule. The more unstable the fat, the more toxic it becomes where it's heated. So be careful and don't use sunflower oil, corn oil, soybean oil, because when exposed to heat, they become very dangerous. They're also highly processed, high in polyunsaturated fats, and prone to oxidation. Basically, keep it simple. So eat fat in their natural form. Animal fats, olive oil, avocado, butter, fish oil, and that's it. It's very simple. So let me now explain to you why protein alone is not enough and why protein without fat doesn't really work. So let me tell you something very important. Protein without fat simply doesn't work. And this is where most people go wrong. Most people think if I eat high amount of protein, I'll get bigger muscles. So they stick to chicken breast, egg whites, protein shakes, but low fat. So they are still avoiding fat. So when that happens, you will have poor hormone production because you don't have fat and cholesterol. Also, you're going to have very fast digestion of your protein and very weak anabolic signal. So protein without fat is incomplete. Your body needs both. So in order to fully absorb your protein without causing spikes of amino acids and then crashes, you need sustainable release of amino acids in your bloodstream. This will only happen if you eat protein and fat together. For example, steak and eggs. I advise in grams ratio between protein and fat to be 2:1 or 2:0.5. That means if you eat 200 grams of protein, you should have 100 grams of fat. Or you should have 200 grams of protein and 50 grams of fat. But this is individual, depending on many individual factors. Some people can even go more, higher amount of fat. But there is no one size fits all. There is no single rule that will cover everybody. So this ratio, this diet of protein and fat will give you enough protein for muscle growth, enough fat for hormone productions. Also, it will help you control insulin response and offer you stable energy throughout the day. So not too much fat, not too little fat, but right ratio, as I mentioned. You need just enough fat to support physiology. So if you eat too little fat, what is going to happen? Your hormones will drop, your testosterone will drop, and your recovery will suffer. If you eat too much fat, remember this, you will have excess calories and you will gain fat. So balance matters. A lot of people who are on carnivore diet come back to me and said, oh, I've been carnivore for 2-3 years. I don't eat any carbs, but I still can't get rid of fat. I'm still fat. Of course you're fat because you're eating too much fat. And then when I ask them, they come back and say, oh, I'm on 250 grams of protein, about 300 to 400 grams of fat. So obviously this is the huge caloric intake which the body cannot handle it. And it's not true that if you're on carnivore diet, you can eat unlimited amount of fat. This is a fable. This is not going to happen. So carnivore diets are good, and a lot of people benefit from them simply because they eliminate carbs, they eliminate processed food, and they don't have constant insulin spikes. So these three benefits are huge on carnivore diet. But the problem is often they eat too much fat. If you stick to carnivore diet, I would not advise you to eat any extra fat, but just eat your meat, eat your eggs, and in some cases cheese, and all the fat is going to be there. So if your meat is 20% protein, 10% fat, that will be perfect. Perfect ratio is there, is in natural foods as nature has created it. So if you look at eggs, you have the same amount of protein and same amount of fat in egg. So again, you will have enough fat just if you stick to meat and eggs. Also, if you have fish is also 20-25% protein, 10-15% fat, depending which fish, and also cheese. Cheese is often 30% protein, and if you go low-fat cheese, you will be on 15 to 20% fat, which is again very good ratio, is exactly where you want to be. So I would not suggest anything else. You can have extra avocado or olive oil if you are eating leaner meats, but if you are on meat steaks which are 10-15% fat, you are absolutely fine. So let me summarize once again that fat itself is not a problem. The problem is metabolic dysfunction. If your body is insulin resistant, constantly spiking insulin, and also inflamed, then nothing is going to work properly. So you need to sort those problems out. So you can eat high protein, low fat, low carb, and still struggle because your body is not responding correctly. So what should you do? You should first of all prioritize protein. High intake of protein is absolutely essential, not just for muscle growth, but for metabolic health. Also include healthy fats. Fat, which is in your natural food, like in meat, eggs, fish, cheese, is very good fat. Also, you can add fat like olive oil, avocado, or fish oil. You also need to control your carbohydrate intake. You should be on very low amount of carbohydrates or even on zero carbohydrates. This will all help you to improve your insulin sensitivity, which is again absolutely essential for your metabolic health and also for your muscle growth and fat loss. You need to build your meals around, again, meat, eggs, and natural fats. Avoid constant snacking, processed carbs, and low-fat artificial foods. So again, remember this, fat does not make you fat. Poor metabolic control does. So fix that and your body will start working with you, not against you. Let me remind you that after 40 years in bodybuilding, 46 competitions, 17 victories, and over 3,500 clients that I have coached in this period, I have also published 12 ebooks which are fully loaded with detailed information about everything you always wanted to know about bodybuilding. So if you finally want to start growing muscles and burning body fat, if you are serious about your bodybuilding approach, simply click on that link in the comments and you can download my ebooks. I have also recently published Bodybuilding Blueprint course in which I personally demonstrate and explain the most perfect technique of most effective exercises for every muscle group. This course is made of 8 videos in which most effective exercises are explained in detail and demonstrated by me, so you can learn finally how to exercise with perfect form and start having results. If interested in learning how to train properly and effectively, click in the link in the comments and you can download my Bodybuilding Blueprint course. So guys, if you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, share the video, and also send me your comments. And I will see you in the next video.